The sound of my father's Rolex slamming against the marble countertop echoed through our Connecticut mansion's kitchen. His face was calm, the dangerous kind of calm that always preceded his worst storms. $1 million, he said, sliding the check across the granite island. Take it and end this ridiculous engagement. That's my final offer, Alexandra. I stared at the check, my hands trembling not from fear, but from rage that had been building for years. 7 years of working myself to exhaustion at my father's investment firm by day while secretly building my own tech company by night. 7 years of living a double life that nobody, not my aristocratic family, and not even Ethan, the man I loved, knew about. His name is Ethan, I said quietly, and I'm going to marry him whether you approve or not. My mother gasped. In 28 years, I'd never directly challenged my father. In the Richardson household, Richard Richardson's word was law. Then you're no longer my daughter, he replied, his voice ice cold as he tore the check into pieces. You have until tomorrow to remove your belongings from this house. Your trust fund will be terminated. Your position at the firm is finished. My mother grabbed his arm. Richard, please, she's just confused. A Richardson does not marry a penniless artist from Queens, he spat. She's made her choice. As he stormed out, I caught my reflection in the kitchen window, designer clothes, perfect makeup, the diamond earrings that had been my Harvard graduation gift. The perfect Richardson heiress except for the secret bank account holding over $2 million I'd earned through my startup, Alex Tech Solutions. I could have told them right then. Could have pulled out my phone and shown them the offshore accounts, the business licenses, the contracts with Fortune 500 companies. Could have explained that the charity work I disappeared to do twice a week was actually me running board meetings for my rapidly growing tech firm. Instead, I picked up my car keys and whispered to my sobbing mother, I'm sorry you never had the courage to stand up to him. As I drove toward Ethan's Brooklyn apartment, my phone exploded with notifications from my executive team about a major new client signing on. Little did my father know that while he was disowning me, I was finalizing a deal that would double my company's valuation overnight. Ethan Miller's art studio apartment was everything the Richardson estate wasn't: cramped, chaotic, and bursting with authentic life. Paint splatters decorated the concrete floors. Canvases leaned against every wall, vibrant with colors that captured New York's heartbeat. Your father really said that? Ethan asked, his paint-stained hands wrapped around a mug of cheap coffee. That you have to choose between me or your family? Classic Richard Richardson ultimatum, I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. Everything's a business transaction to him. Even his daughter's happiness. Ethan and I had met at an art gallery fundraiser 18 months ago. I was there representing my father's firm. He was the featured artist who'd grown up in Queens with a public school teacher mom and a dad who drove city buses. His talent was raw and undeniable. Our connection was immediate and intense. What Ethan didn't know was that I'd already been secretly running Alex Tech Solutions for 3 years when we met. My entry-level position at my father's firm was just a cover somewhere to be seen during business hours while I built something entirely mine. Are you sure about this, Alex? Ethan set down his coffee. Your family, your inheritance, your whole world, that's a lot to give up. If he only knew the truth that I wasn't giving up nearly as much as my family believed. That while they thought I was throwing away millions in inheritance, I'd already created millions of my own. You're my world now, I said instead. My family will either accept that or they won't. My phone buzzed again. My CFO texting, urgent, investor call in 20 minutes. Major acquisition opportunity. Work? Ethan asked. Just the marketing agency, I lied, referring to the mid-level job I'd pretended to take after being cut off. Nothing important. I excused myself to the bathroom, locked the door, and took the investor call that would expand my company into 3 new markets. All while the man I was about to marry believed I was answering emails about advertising campaigns for small businesses. I caught my reflection in Ethan's cracked bathroom mirror and barely recognized myself. Alexandra Richardson, secret tech millionaire, living a double life that was growing more complicated by the day. 6 months into our marriage, the cracks in my carefully constructed facade were beginning to show. I'd sit at our tiny kitchen table in our Brooklyn walk-up, pretending to stress over paying bills while secretly checking my company's stock portfolio on my phone beneath the table. The isolation from my family cut deeper than I'd expected. My sister Caroline's wedding invitation arrived addressed only to me, no mention of Ethan. My mother's birthday came and went without a call. Old friends from our social circles stopped returning my messages. "They'll come around," Ethan assured me as we lay in bed, moonlight streaming through our window. Family is family. They can't stay angry forever. But he didn't understand the Richardson capacity for grudges. My cousin had been excommunicated for marrying a Democrat 15 years ago and hadn't been mentioned since. The worst part wasn't the family events I missed or the social connections severed. It was watching Ethan's face fall each time he suggested we go out to dinner, and I had to remind him about our budget. It was hearing him talk about starting a family when we're more financially stable. It was knowing I could solve all our problems with a single bank transfer, but being too afraid to reveal my deception. "I got you something," Ethan said one evening, handing me a small wrapped package. Inside was a delicate silver necklace, simple but beautiful. "I've been saving up," he explained proudly. "I know it's not like the jewelry you used to have, but it's perfect," I whispered, guilt crushing my chest as I fastened it around my neck. The necklace had probably cost him 2 weeks' worth of art sales. Meanwhile, I'd signed a contract that morning licensing my software to 3 major banks for 8 figures. That night, I slipped out of bed at 2 a.m. for another insomnia walk, my cover for handling urgent business calls from international clients. Standing on our fire escape in the freezing December air, I closed a deal that would make us millionaires 5 times over. "We're expanding into the European market next quarter," my COO informed me excitedly. "That's great," I replied, watching my breath fog in the cold. "Listen, I need to explore options for going public with my identity soon. I can't keep living like this." When I crawled back into bed, Ethan stirred and pulled me close. "Your feet are freezing," he murmured sleepily. "You need to stop taking those walks. We could afford better slippers if you'd just let me pick up that commercial mural gig." I buried my face in his shoulder to hide the tears. The weight of my lies was becoming unbearable. "I don't understand what's happening with you lately," Ethan said, his voice cracking as he paced our apartment. "You disappear for hours. You take phone calls in the bathroom. You're constantly checking your phone." The unspoken accusation hung in the air between us. "Are you having an affair?" he finally asked, eyes filled with hurt. "God, no," I gasped, reaching for his hands. "Never. It's nothing like that." "Then what?" "Because something is going on, Alex. The woman I married wouldn't lie to me, but you've been lying for months. I can feel it." The moment of truth had arrived sooner than I'd planned. My double life had become unsustainable. The late-night investor calls, the girls' nights out that were actually board meetings, the mysterious deposits I made to keep our bills paid while pretending we were struggling. I took a deep breath, walked to my side of the closet, and removed the false bottom from my jewelry box. Inside was my business card: Alexandra Richardson, founder CEO, Alex Tech Solutions. "I need to show you something," I said, handing him the card. His confusion was palpable. "I don't understand." I opened my laptop and pulled up our company website, our financial statements, articles about our mysterious founder who disrupted the fintech industry while maintaining anonymity. "I'm not a marketing coordinator," I explained, my voice shaking. "I'm the CEO of a tech company worth over $30 million. The look of betrayal on Ethan's face gutted me. "3 years," he whispered. "We've been married for 3 years, and you've been lying to me the entire time?" "I started the company before I met you," I explained desperately. Before my family disowned me. It was my secret, the one thing that was just mine. And then after we got married, I didn't know how to tell you without you thinking I'd been deceiving you from the beginning. Which you were, he shouted, standing up so abruptly his chair fell backward. Do you realize what you've put me through? Watching me pick up extra commissions because I thought we couldn't afford rent? Letting me feel inadequate because I couldn't give you the lifestyle you were used to? All while you were what, a millionaire playing poverty. He grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. Where are you going? I asked, panic rising in my throat. I need to think, he said without looking back. Don't wait up. As the door slammed behind him, I collapsed onto our worn couch, the full weight of my choices crashing down around me. In trying to keep both worlds separate, I'd risked losing everything that actually mattered. I was 16 when I wrote my first piece of code, a simple program that tracked stock market patterns. When I showed it to my father over breakfast, his response was a dismissive wave. Computers are for the people who work for us, Alexandra, he said without looking up from his Wall Street Journal. Focus on your social skills. That's how Richardson women succeed. Later that day, my mother found me crying in my room. Instead of comfort, she offered strategy. Your father means well, she said, smoothing my hair. The Richardson name opens doors that talent alone cannot. I was quite the mathematician in college, you know. But I understood my role was to support your father's ambitions, not pursue my own. That's not fair, I protested. Fair has nothing to do with it, she replied. You were born into privilege, Alexandra. That comes with certain expectations. Throughout my years at Harvard Business School, I maintained the facade my parents expected: social butterfly, perfect grades, appropriate boyfriends from appropriate families. No one knew I was spending nights building the foundation for Alex Tech Solutions, meticulously hiding my digital footprints from my father's watchful network. I'd secured my first round of funding using my mother's maiden name on the documents. By graduation, my side project was already worth $500,000. When my father offered me an entry-level position at his firm of vice presidency that others worked decades to achieve, I accepted with practiced gratitude. It was the perfect cover for my growing company. While he thought I was learning the Richardson way of business, I was actually creating something that would one day eclipse it entirely. The morning after my family disowned me, my mother appeared at Ethan's door. I expected anger or demands that I return home. Instead, she silently handed me a small velvet box. The Richardson pearls, she explained. Worn by Richardson women for 4 generations. I started to refuse them, but she held up her hand. You'll always be a Richardson, Alexandra, whether you use the name or not. Your father doesn't know I'm here. He wouldn't understand, but I think perhaps you're braver than I ever was. As she turned to leave, I called after her. Mom, there's something I need to tell you. About what I've been working on. She smiled sadly. I know more than you think, Alexandra. Where did you think that initial investment for your company came from? Just be careful. Your father wouldn't forgive either of us if he knew. The revelation stunned me. My mother, the perfect Richardson wife, had secretly funded my rebellion. Had known about my company all along. Was that her form of resistance? Living vicariously through my defiance? As her town car pulled away, I realized that the strength I thought was mine alone might have been inherited after all, just not from the parent I'd expected. Dr. Sarah Williams' office became my sanctuary in the week after Ethan left. As my therapist for the past month initially sought for work stress, she was the only person besides Ethan who now knew both sides of my life. He hasn't returned any of my calls, I told her, staring out her office window at the Manhattan skyline. It's been 8 days. He's processing a significant betrayal, she replied. You've had years to reconcile these two versions of yourself. He's had just over a week. I thought I was protecting him, I whispered. From my family's world. From the pressure of suddenly having money. Were you protecting him? she asked gently, or protecting yourself from having to integrate these two separate identities you've created? The question hit me like a physical blow. For years, I'd compartmentalized my life: Alexandra Richardson, the tech CEO, and Alex Miller, the struggling artist's wife. Never allowing them to overlap. Never fully being either one. I don't even know who I am anymore, I admitted. Without my family name. Without the secrecy. That's what you need to figure out, Dr. Williams said. Not for Ethan. Not for your family. For yourself. As I left her office, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Hoping it might be Ethan calling from someone else's phone, I answered immediately. Alexandra Richardson, a woman's voice asked. This is she, I replied automatically, wincing at using my maiden name. This is Janet Chin from Business Insider. We're running a feature on women in tech, and sources tell us you're the mystery CEO behind Alex Tech Solutions. Would you care to comment? My blood ran cold. My carefully constructed anonymity was crumbling. If this story ran, everyone would know my father, his business associates, the social circles that had rejected me. I'll need to call you back, I managed before ending the call. I stood frozen on the sidewalk as people streamed around me. For years, I'd been terrified of my worlds colliding. Now it was happening whether I was ready or not. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It's Ethan. We need to talk. Meet me at Riverside Park. Our bench. 6 p.m. In that moment, I made my decision. No more hiding. No more compartmentalizing. No more half-truths. It was time to become whole. I arrived at our bench early, watching the Hudson River flow past as the setting sun painted the water copper and gold. This was where Ethan had proposed 4 years ago, with a simple emerald ring that had probably cost him a month's income. When he finally appeared, the sight of him made my heart ache. He looked tired, his usually perfect hair uncombed, his shoulders slumped. I've been staying with my buddy Marcus, he said, sitting beside me but keeping his distance. Needed time to think. I understand, I replied, fighting the urge to reach for his hand. Do you? He asked, finally looking at me. Because I'm not sure you understand what it feels like to realize your entire marriage has been built on a lie. Not the entire marriage, I protested. Everything between us is real, Ethan. The only thing I lied about was being a secret millionaire while watching me stress about making rent, he interrupted. Was letting me believe we were in this struggle together when you could have snapped your fingers and solved every problem. I had no defense. He was right. There's more, I said quietly. Business Insider is running a story about me. About Alex Tech. Once it publishes, everyone will know my father, our friends, everyone. He was silent for a long moment. So that's why you finally told me the truth? Because you were about to be exposed anyway. No. I've been wanting to tell you for months. Things were just getting too complicated. The company was growing too big to keep hidden. I was going to tell you, I swear. Would you believe you if you were me? He asked softly. Before I could answer, my phone rang. My father's number. After 4 years of silence. I should take this, I said, showing Ethan the screen. He nodded, his expression unreadable. Hello? I answered. Alexandra. My father's voice was tight, controlled. I just received a very interesting call from Business Insider, asking for comment about my daughter's tech company. Would you care to explain? My heart raced. It's true, I said, feeling Ethan's eyes on me. I founded Alex Tech Solutions 5 years ago, while still working for you. The silence on the other end stretched for so long I thought he might have hung up. $30 million, he finally said. That's what they're valuing your company at. Actually, our last round of funding put us closer to 50, I corrected, a lifetime of seeking his approval still hardwired into my responses. Another long pause. The company gathering in the Hamptons this weekend. Your mother would. We would like you to attend. Bring Ethan. The line went dead before I could respond. I turned to Ethan, tears streaming down my face. My father just invited us to the Hamptons. After 4 years of pretending I don't exist. And? Ethan asked. Are we going? We? I repeated, hope blooming in my chest. He took my hand, his expression serious. I'm still angry, Alex. I still feel betrayed. But I didn't marry you for your money whether you had it or not. I married you because I love you. The real you, whoever that turns out to be. For the first time in years, I felt like I could finally breathe. The Richardson summer estate in the Hamptons was exactly as I remembered, sprawling, immaculate, and intimidating. As our Uber pulled up the circular driveway, I squeezed Ethan's hand so tightly he winced. We don't have to do this, he reminded me. We can turn around right now. No, I said firmly. No more running. No more hiding. The housekeeper who answered the door gasped when she saw me, quickly composing herself to lead us to the back terrace where the annual company gathering was in full swing. Conversations halted as we walked through the crowd. The prodigal daughter returned, with her artist husband beside her. My father stood near the pool, holding court with his executive team. When he spotted us, he excused himself and walked over, my mother hurrying to join him. Alexandra, he said stiffly. You look well. Dad, I nodded. Mom. This is my husband, Ethan Miller. Ethan extended his hand. After a moment's hesitation, my father shook it. Mr. Miller. I understand you're an artist. I am, Ethan replied confidently. Currently showing at the Gansford Gallery in Chelsea. My mother touched my arm tentatively. We've seen the articles, Alexandra. About your company. It's impressive. You knew. I asked my father. Before the Business Insider piece? A flicker of something crossed his face. Pride? Regret? I had suspicions when certain clients began mentioning innovative software from a company I'd never heard of. The Richardson instinct for business, perhaps. People were openly staring now, waiting for drama to unfold. The disowned daughter and her family's first confrontation. Instead, my father raised his glass. I'd like to propose a toast, he announced, his voice carrying across the terrace. To Alexandra Richardson Miller and her company, Alex Tech Solutions. It seems entrepreneurship does run in the family after all. Polite applause followed, glasses clinked, and just like that, I was apparently welcomed back into the fold, not as the obedient daughter who'd followed the Richardson path, but as a business success they could claim as their own. As the party continued, my father pulled me aside. We should discuss a potential partnership between our companies. Richardson Investment Group could benefit from your technology. Of course. Not an apology, but a business proposal. Some things never changed. I'll have my team reach out to yours, I replied coolly. Standard vetting process for all potential clients. His eyebrows rose at my tone, but he nodded. Of course. As it should be. Later, as Ethan and I prepared to leave, my mother pressed something into my hand, the velvet box containing the Richardson pearls. They belong to you, she insisted. Richardson women have worn them for generations. I opened the box, looking at the luminous string of perfect white spheres. Then I closed it and handed it back. I'm not just a Richardson anymore, Mom. I'm a Miller. And I'm the CEO of my own company. I'm forging my own path now. As our car pulled away, Ethan put his arm around me. You okay? I rested my head on his shoulder, watching my past recede through the rear window. I think I finally am. The Business Insider feature ran the following week. Tech's mystery mogul revealed how Alexandra Richardson Miller built a $1 million empire in secret. The photo they used showed me in the doorway of our Alex Tech offices, dressed not in Richardson Dynasty pearls and Chanel, but in jeans and a simple blazer, looking confident and entirely myself. The media frenzy that followed was intense. Everyone wanted the story of the disowned heiress who'd built her own fortune while her family thought she was struggling. Overnight, I became the face of female entrepreneurship, of defying family expectations, of forging your own path. Ethan supported me through every interview and photo shoot, proudly standing beside me as I finally stepped into my full identity. Our relationship was healing slowly, with the help of couples therapy and honest conversations about the future we wanted to build together. The hardest moment came when my father called one morning, his voice unusually subdued. "The board is meeting next week," he said without preamble, "to discuss the future leadership of Richardson Investment Group." And? I prompted, unsure why he was telling me this. "And your name has been suggested as a potential successor. Not immediately, of course, but with a transition period where you would." "No," I interrupted, the words surprisingly easy to say. "No," he repeated, clearly shocked. "Alexandra, this is everything we've been grooming you for since birth. The Richardson legacy is yours, Dad. Not mine. I've built my own legacy now." There was a long silence. "I don't understand. After everything, I'm offering you what you always wanted." "What you always wanted for me," I corrected gently. "I have my own company, my own vision, my own life." Another pause, longer this time. "You've changed," he finally said. "I've become myself," I replied. When I hung up, Ethan was watching me from across our new loft, a beautiful space in Tribeca where he had a proper art studio and I had a home office worthy of a CEO. "You just turned down the Richardson empire," he said, sounding odd. "Turns out I didn't want it after all," I shrugged. "I just wanted their approval. And I don't need that anymore." He pulled me into his arms, kissing me deeply. "I'm proud of you, Mrs. Miller. For building a successful company?" I teased. "For finding yourself," he corrected. "The money's just a bonus." 1 year later, I stood on a stage at the Women in Tech Summit, looking out at hundreds of faces eager to hear my story. In the front row sat Ethan, beaming with pride, his hand resting protectively on my very pregnant belly. "Most success stories follow a familiar narrative," I began. "Overcoming obstacles, defying expectations, triumphing against the odds." My story certainly includes those elements, disowned by my family for marrying the man I loved, secretly building a tech company now valued at over $100 million. I paused, looking at the diverse crowd. But the real breakthrough wasn't financial success. It wasn't proving my family wrong. It wasn't even building something entirely on my own. The real breakthrough was learning to integrate all parts of myself: the ambitious businesswoman, the loving wife, the daughter seeking approval, the rebel forging her own path. For years, I kept these identities separate, thinking they couldn't coexist. I was wrong. In the back of the auditorium, I spotted two figures I hadn't expected: my parents, listening intently. True success isn't measured by your bank account or your family name. It's measured by your ability to live authentically, to stop hiding parts of yourself, to make others comfortable, to be whole. The applause that followed was thunderous. As I stepped away from the podium, my hand instinctively went to my stomach, feeling our daughter kick. We'd decided to name her Maya, meaning wisdom, a reminder of the lessons that had brought us here. Later, at the reception, my parents approached hesitantly. "That was quite a speech," my father said, uncharacteristically subdued. "Thank you for coming," I replied, genuinely surprised to see them there. "Your mother insisted," he explained, though his expression suggested it hadn't taken much convincing. "We've been following your success." My mother touched my arm gently. "We're proud of you, Alexandra. It wasn't the path we would have chosen, but it was the right path for me," I finished. My father cleared his throat. "The offer still stands. A place at Richardson Investment Group. Though I suspect we'd be the ones benefiting more than you at this point." I smiled, feeling no anger, no resentment, just peace. "My company is doing quite well, Dad. But perhaps we could discuss a collaboration between equals instead." Something shifted in his expression: respect, finally. As my parents left, Ethan joined me, slipping his arm around my waist. "Family reunion going well?" "It's a start," I said, leaning into him. A new chapter. That night, as we lay in bed in our beautiful home, a home purchased with money I'd earned, decorated with Ethan's art, I reflected on the journey that had brought us here. From secrecy and separation to wholeness and truth. "What are you thinking about?" Ethan asked, his hand resting on my rounded belly. "How sometimes you have to lose everything to find yourself," I replied. "And how the hardest secret to keep isn't success, but who you really are." The greatest twist in my story wasn't that I built $1 million company behind my family's back. It was discovering that true wealth comes from the courage to live undivided, no more masks, no more compartments, just the beautiful complexity of being fully, authentically yourself.